I am not old. I will only be 66 years old on my next birthday.
Are you ready to delve into the age-old mysteries of the Star Trek universe? Today we're going to answer a burning question that has been on the minds of many Star Trek fans. Just how old is Subcommander T'Pol from Star Trek Enterprise compared to her fellow crew members, Captain Jonathan Archer and Chief Engineer Charles Trip Tucker III. Stick around until the end to find out the surprising truth about T'Pol's age and how it compares to her human counterparts. Trust me, it's worth the wait. Now, before we reveal everything, let's take a recap on who is T'Pol, how Jolene Blalock became T'Pol in Star Trek Enterprise. Originally, the producers planned to feature a younger version of the iconic T'Pol. However, legal difficulties prompted a clever solution: the creation of T'Pol. Talk about a cosmic plot twist. Brannon Braga admitted that T'Pol was simply easier to pronounce and they avoided any legal entanglements. Now, the casting process for T'Pol was no walk in the park. Series producer Rick Berman admitted they saw hundreds of actresses, searching for that perfect blend of beauty, talent, and someone who wouldn't immediately bolt for the big screen. Talk about a tough job, but hey, somebody's got to do it. The character that would become the iconic T'Pol was the last one to be cast for Enterprise. According to Brannon Braga, hundreds of actresses were tested for the part, but none seemed to capture the essence of the alluring yet confident and capable Vulcan described in the character Bible. Initially envisioned with elements of Celia Lovsky's austere performance as T'Pol, the producers found themselves unsure of what they were truly seeking. It was Jolene Blalock in the very last group to audition, who proved to be a slam dunk. Ironically, Blalock had turned down the audition 3 times, despite being a fan of the original series and Spock in particular as a child. It was only after her agent's persistent convincing and reading the script for Broken Bow that she agreed to read for the part. Once she stepped in front of the producers, things moved swiftly, and before long, Blalock found herself undergoing the 2-hour makeup sessions to transform into the rebel Vulcan that we all came to love. A rebel from birth. Born to T'Les, an esteemed instructor at the prestigious Vulcan Science Academy, T'Pol's path was set from the moment she took her first breath. But this little Vulcan had a rebellious streak that would challenge the very foundations of her society. From an early age, T'Pol found herself drawn to the daring exploits of ambassadors like Valar, whose skilled negotiations during the Treaty of 2097 left an indelible mark on the young Vulcan psyche. But keep watching as we have more on T'Pol's interesting past. A career forged in fire. After completing her training for the formidable Vulcan Ministry of Security, T'Pol's life took an unexpected turn. Forced to take a life during a mission, the emotional trauma proved too much, leading her to resign and undergo the Falara procedure, a process that erases the haunted memories. But the past has a way of catching up, and years later, those suppressed recollections resurfaced, plunging T'Pol into yet another emotional crisis. It was only through the unwavering support of Captain Archer that she found the strength to overcome this turmoil. Following her stint at the Ministry, T'Pol served as the Deputy Science Officer aboard the Vulcan cruiser Saleya, honing her skills in preparation for her true calling, a mission that would change the course of her life forever. But you don't want to miss as we share on. What was T'Pol's journey on the Enterprise like? In 2149, T'Pol's expertise caught the eye of Ambassador Soval, who handpicked her to join the groundbreaking mission of the Enterprise NX-01 as a Vulcan representative and observer under the command of the daring Captain Archer. Little did she know that this decision would set her on a path that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and her culture. During her time aboard the Enterprise, T'Pol embraced human customs with a fervor that would make any traditional Vulcan's eyebrow raise. She attended the ship's movie nights, developed a fondness for indulgent delicacies like pecan pie, and even acquired a delightfully sharp sense of humor, a trait rarely seen in her stoic brethren. But T'Pol's journey was far from smooth sailing. She contracted the dreaded Paynar syndrome from an improper mind meld, a condition initially deemed incurable until the intervention of the wise T'Pol. She also battled a dangerous addiction to trellium D, a substance that caused her to lose control of her emotions, nearly jeopardizing the Enterprise's mission in the treacherous Delphic Expanse. Now, after the harrowing Xindi mission, T'Pol found herself grappling with the aftermath of her emotional turmoil, particularly in the wake of her mother's passing. The discovery of the Kirshara, an ancient artifact containing Surrok's true teachings, prompted her to re-evaluate what it truly meant to be a Vulcan. leading her to temporarily distance herself from her beloved crewmates as she sought answers. And before we compare T'Pol's age, I thought it would be wise if we had a look at something amazing. Facts that you should know about T'Pol, that you probably didn't know. The controversial Trellium D storyline. The third season of Enterprise saw T'Pol exposed to a compound known as Trellium D, a highly addictive and damaging substance. Its first appearance came in Impulse, a genuinely unnerving story about the Vulcan science ship Saleya. T'Pol's addiction to this substance, using it to expand her understanding of emotions, was a controversial one. Brannon Braga later acknowledged that this storyline would be divisive, as it depicted T'Pol knowingly continuing to abuse the substance to further her own emotional exploration, a narrative that had never been attempted with any male Vulcan in the franchise. While the writers defended the storyline, it remains a highly controversial one to this day, leaving the door open to criticism over why the writers chose to go down this path with T'Pol specifically. The shocking revelation that never came. Had Enterprise been approved for a 5th season, we all would have been in for a major shock regarding T'Pol's parentage, specifically her father. Though mentioned on the show, little was revealed about him on screen. The 5th season would have revealed him to be a Romulan spy operating on Vulcan. Now, this was a reuse of the original plan for Lieutenant Saavik, the more emotional Vulcan introduced in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, played by Kirstie Alley. Saavik's heightened emotions were intended to be explained by her being half Romulan, a plot point that was quietly swept away when the character was recast with Robin Curtis in The Search for Spock. Now, the return of this idea for T'Pol would have posed an interesting challenge for the Enterprise writers. At this point in Star Trek's history, no human had seen a Romulan and lived to tell the tale. In Balance of Terror, Spock was unaware that the Romulans were related to the Vulcans, so how would they explain T'Pol's parentage while keeping the canon intact? But now to the main question. How old is T'Pol compared to Captain Archer and Trip? Getting real about ages. Who was the youngest? Alright, so let's break this down in a way that will make total sense. When it comes to the ages of our favorite Enterprise crew members, there was quite a gap between them. Let me paint you a picture. First up, we have got Captain Archer, the fearless leader of the NX-01. Now, this guy was born way back in 2112 on good old Earth. And get this, he became the captain of the Enterprise at just 39 years young. Talk about ambitious, right? Dude was practically a baby compared to his Vulcan science officer, T'Pol. Now, speaking of T'Pol, this green-blooded lady was a real oldie but a goodie. We actually know her exact age thanks to a little tidbit she shared in Season 3, Episode 24, 0 Hour. While chatting with Trip on February 14th, 2154, T'Pol mentioned that she will only be 66 years old on her next birthday. Doing the math, that means our favorite Vulcan was born somewhere around 2088 or 2089 on Earth. So during the events of Broken Bow, when the Enterprise first launched, T'Pol was just a sprightly 62 or 63 years old. Now let's talk about Trip Tucker, the chief engineer and Archer's bestie. This Florida boy was born in 2121, making him 9 years younger than the captain. But compared to T'Pol, dude was practically a baby, coming in 33 years her junior. Did the age differences affect their relationships? Well, despite their age differences, this trio formed one heck of a cosmic family on the Enterprise. Archer and Trip, being human buddies, were two peas in a pod. They got each other's need for adventure and exploration, that whole, seize the day kind of vibe. But then you had T'Pol, the wise old Vulcan, bringing her centuries of logic and measured thinking to the table. She balanced out the human hotshots with her cool, calm, and collected approach. Together, they made one mean exploratory team. And let's not forget the romantic tension between T'Pol and Trip. Talk about an age-defying love story. Sure, she was technically old enough to be his great-great-grandmother, but their hearts didn't care about no stinking age gaps. They formed a deep bond that transcended species and generations. How old T'Pol would be if she appears in Star Trek Strange New Worlds? Now, if T'Pol were to appear in the upcoming Star Trek Strange New World series, she would be one seriously old lady in Vulcan years. Now, we know that Strange New Worlds Season 3 started filming in December 2023. The show takes place shortly before the original Star Trek series with Captain Kirk, somewhere around the year 2259. Now remember what we learned about Vulcan lifespans. They can live over 200 years on average. And we know T'Pol was born around 2088 or 2089 based on that little factoid that she dropped. So if we do the math, that would make our favorite pointy-eared science officer a whopping 171 years old during the events of Strange New Worlds. Talk about an ancient ancestor. But here's the crazy part. At 171, T'Pol could totally still be kicking it and exploring the galaxy. For a Vulcan, that's just like hitting their prime years. So it's absolutely possible that we could see T'Pol pop up on Captain Pike's Enterprise for an epic crossover episode. And get this, Strange New Worlds has already brought in characters from the animated Star Trek Lower Deck series into their live-action world. So the door is wide open for Jolene Blalock to reprise her iconic role as the one and only T'Pol. One fan said she nailed the role. Blalock was the best actor doing a Vulcan since Nimoy. And another said, one of my absolute favorite characters on STE. Would love to see Jolene reprise T'Pol in S&W. There is so much more to T'Pol's arc left to be explored. Now, as we wait for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 release, you might be interested in Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 trailer with Anson Mount and Ethan Peck.